Hey there again, this is Ed Beard with the Employer's Edge, and in this video we're going to take a real brief look at why leaders can derail because of poor communication, and in this case poor communication being passive-aggressive behavior. The ultimate result of passive-aggressive behavior is the leader erodes trust and really damages respect. Now, teams and individuals, they cannot work at their best. They cannot perform at their best. And in an environment or with a leader who is not trustworthy or respectable. So ultimately, these passive-aggressive leaders, the organization pays a performance price for this. Now, here's why we get into this in our Getting Into Leadership Shape program and in our book. What we need to do with passive-aggressive behaviors, if this is you or you are working with an individual who's passive-aggressive, is bring them to a point where they really understand passive-aggressiveness is ultimately selfish. Here's why I say that. Think about it. If in the midst of a conflict moment, if a passive-aggressive mind wants to avoid conflict and be comfortable, and that becomes more important than the organization getting a result, that's selfish. If they to themselves are more important to themselves than the organization is to themselves, that is just ultimately selfish. So in order to work with that passive-aggressive behavior, you got to get them to be aware of how selfish it is. Number two, you got to give them the tools and the experiences to ultimately move past that. We have people that, passive-aggressive leaders that tell us, oh, I'm way different at home than I am at work. Yeah, you think so? Well, maybe other people don't think so. I bet if I watch you for 15 minutes at home and at work, I can demonstrate to you how you're passive-aggressive in both areas. You're just not aware of it. So here's what we have to take a look at. Passive-aggressive leaders, teams and individuals look at them in terms of what they say and don't say. They look at them in terms of what they do and don't do, and if the two don't match up, that erodes trust and respect. I mean, trust and respect takes a major hit in that type of an environment. And it could be something as simple as a passive-aggressive leader in a meeting and not speaking up, conveying a disagreement. And in the absence of disagreement, the message they send to everyone else in the meeting is they agree with that. And then that passive-aggressive leader goes back into the hallway, goes back into the world, does a little of this, talking with other people, and they do what they want. And the rest of the team is left going, we didn't talk about that. That's not the decision we made. I want input on that. And so we see passive-aggressiveness show up in little ways, and we see it show up in huge, very big conflict ways, costly ways. And they both come down to the same thing. That leader is trying to avoid conflict. And what they do is they overlay their conflict on other people. That conflict that you or other people feel, that conflict, they say, I have this really uncomfortable moment. They overlay that on other individuals and onto other teams that do not have that same sense. So they basically give their problem to other people. And that's just not right. That's just very selfish in order to do that. So we had this one passive-aggressive leader in meetings. What he would do, he wanted to send, say, Amy a message on the team. So he would put a specific slide in the slide deck with a message targeted at Amy. And so the entire team knew what he was doing. Well, why not just go to Amy and have a direct conversation with Amy and just get past this thing like right here and now, so that Amy really understood what was going on and you understood what was going on with Amy. Direct communication is always better. This put messages in slide decks to send people messages like that, that's just nasty. We also had a large organization that you probably heard of. They had two departments that have to work together, and they're both managing an outside contractor. So the leaders of both of these departments were both very passive-aggressive. So John, he was one of those guys that would not speak up in meetings, conveying his disagreement. So in the absence of disagreement, he was basically telling everybody, he agreed with that. So Steve put together a meeting for 30 different people combined in 2 different departments to talk about how to manage this contractor. 30 different people, and he wanted to do it only to give John a chance to speak up in a meeting, so that later on he can go back to John and say, you didn't speak up in the meeting when you had a chance, therefore we're not going to listen to you now. Why don't you just go to John and have a direct conversation with John? Fix this darn thing. What he did though instead, consume the time of 30 different people for a half an hour. That's 15 hours worth of time, all to put John in a put John in a trap. I mean, that's just nasty. And that time just really eroded his trust and respect by everybody in both departments, and the organization paid a performance price for that. So if you are a leader that is passive aggressive, or you have to manage that passive aggressive personality, that mind, I think we can probably help you with that, and hope this gave you some ideas on how to get there.